The gray Mercedes sat dead on the shoulder of Highway 41, steam hissing angrily from under the hood like a dying beast. It was the kind of heat that didn't just warm you, it pressed against your skin, heavy and suffocating. Inside the car, 72-year-old Martha gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white, her heart hammering a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She was miles from the nearest town, her phone had no signal, and the water bottle on the passenger seat was empty. But the heat wasn't what terrified her. It was the low, rhythmic rumble vibrating through the floorboards, a sound that was getting louder, closer, and more aggressive by the second. She looked into the rearview mirror and saw them. A dozen black specks on the horizon, rapidly growing into a formation of roaring steel. It was a motorcycle gang. The chrome of their bikes flashed like knives in the sunlight, and the thunder of their engines drowned out her own shallow breathing. Martha had heard stories about this stretch of road, stories that ended in tragedy. She locked her doors, the click sounding pathetically small against the encroaching roar. She felt a primal instinct to hide, but there was nowhere to go. The lead biker, a massive figure clad in black leather and denim, slowed down. He didn't pass her. He signaled, and the entire pack swerved toward the shoulder, encircling her car like predators closing in on wounded prey. Before I tell you what happened next, pause for a moment. If you believe that help often comes from the most unexpected places, like this video, leave a comment, share your thoughts, and subscribe to Kindness Valley. Tell me where you're watching from. I'd love to know who is here with us today. The engines cut off, one by one, leaving a sudden, ringing silence that was somehow louder than the noise. Dust swirled around the car, coating the windows in a fine brown film. Martha watched through the glass as the leader dismounted. He was terrifying. He stood over 6 feet tall, his arms thick as tree trunks and covered in tattoos of skulls and serpents. He wore a vest with patches that Martha didn't understand, but she knew they commanded authority. His beard was long and gray, tangling in the wind, and his sunglasses hid his eyes completely. He walked toward her driver's side door, his heavy boots crunching on the gravel. Martha remembered a signal her late husband, a military man, had taught her decades ago, a subtle gesture used to show vulnerability and request immediate aid without escalating a situation. It was a long shot, a relic from a different time. With a trembling hand, she pressed her palm against the window, fingers spread, then slowly curled her thumb inward. It was a silent plea. A rescue signal thrown into the void. The giant man stopped. He tilted his head, looking at the hand against the glass. For a terrifying second, time suspended. He reached out a gloved hand toward the door handle. Martha squeezed her eyes shut, preparing for the worst. But the door didn't rip open. Instead, a gentle tap echoed on the glass. She opened her eyes. The man had taken a step back, holding his hands up to show they were empty. He motioned for her to roll down the window. With shaking fingers, she lowered it just 2 inches. The smell of hot asphalt and exhaust filled the cabin. The man's voice was surprisingly deep, like gravel tumbling in a mixer, but it wasn't angry. "Ma'am," he said, "your radiator is blown. You can't stay in this heat. It's not safe." Martha blinked, the fear slowly beginning to crack, letting in a sliver of confusion. I don't have reception," she stammered. The biker nodded. "I know. Dead zone. Pop the hood." It wasn't a request, it was a command, but delivered with the calm assurance of someone who solved problems for a living. Martha hesitated, then pulled the lever. For the next 40 minutes, the terrifying gang of bikers transformed. The leader, who introduced himself simply as Jax, leaned into the engine bay, indifferent to the grease staining his arms. 2 other men stood guard, not to keep her prisoner, but to direct traffic around her car, ensuring no one else clipped the vehicle. Another younger biker pulled a cold bottle of water from his saddlebag and offered it to her through the window with a shy nod. Martha watched them in awe. The men society had told her to fear were currently treating her broken sedan with the precision of a pit crew. Jax wiped his hands on a rag, his face streaked with oil. "Fix the hose temporarily," he said, leaning down to her level. It'll get you to the service station 10 miles up. Don't go over 50. Martha reached for her purse. She pulled out a handful of cash, likely more than enough for the repair. Please, she said, her voice steadying. Take this. You saved me. Jax looked at the money, then up at Martha's eyes. He didn't take it. He smiled, and the harshness of his face softened into something undeniably human. I don't want your money, ma'am, he said. My mother drives a car just like this. I hope if she was ever stranded, someone would stop for her, too. He tapped the roof of her car twice, a signal that she was clear to go. Drive safe. With that, he mounted his bike, the engine roaring back to life not as a threat, but as a salute. They thundered away, leaving Martha alone with a running engine and a heart that felt 2 sizes bigger. An hour later, Martha sat in a small, roadside diner. She was still shaken, but the fear had been replaced by a profound sense of gratitude. The waitress serving her was heavily pregnant, looking exhausted as she wiped down tables. She couldn't have been more than 25, dark circles under her eyes, moving with the heaviness of someone carrying the weight of the world. She brought Martha a slice of pie and a coffee, offering a tired but genuine smile. Sorry about the wait, honey, the waitress said, wiping her forehead. Short-staffed today. And my feet are killing me. Martha watched her walk away. She thought of Jax. She thought of the fear she had felt, and the judgment she had passed before knowing the truth. She thought about the chain of kindness that holds the world together, how it relies on us passing the baton when we are able. Martha finished her pie, but she didn't just leave the bill. On a napkin, she wrote a note. Under the napkin, she placed 5 $100 bills, the money Jax had refused to take. When the waitress returned to the table a few minutes later, the elderly woman was gone. She picked up the napkin, frowning in confusion, until she saw the money stacked beneath it. Her breath hitched. Tears welled up in her eyes instantly. She read the note, written in shaky, elegant cursive. Someone helped me today on the highway and refused payment. He told me he hoped someone would help his family if they needed it. I'm helping you, so his hope comes true. The waitress went home that night, her legs aching but her spirits soaring. She walked into the small apartment she shared with her husband. He was already home, sitting at the kitchen table, looking exhausted. His leather vest hung on the back of the chair, covered in road dust. He looked up, his face rugged and scarred. Rough day? He asked gently. You won't believe it, Jax, she said, placing the money and the note on the table. An angel came into the diner today. Jax picked up the note. As he read the words, the hardened biker stopped. He recognized the handwriting. He remembered the fear in the elderly lady's eyes that had turned to trust. He looked at his wife, at their unborn child, and then at the money that had come full circle. The man who looked like a villain to the world sat in the quiet of his kitchen and wept, realizing that the kindness he gave to a stranger had traveled miles down the road to save his own family. The world is often quick to judge by appearances. We see the leather, the tattoos, or the scars, and we assume the worst. We see the frailty, and we assume weakness. But true character is not written on our clothes, it is written in our actions. The cycle of kindness is a circle. What you put out into the world has a funny way of finding its way back to you, often when you need it the most. If this story moved you, please like, leave a comment, and share your thoughts below. Don't forget to subscribe to Kindness Valley for more untold stories that touch the soul.